Hello, everyone, and welcome to this series. A fantastic person we are going to meet, Dr. Madana Kumar. So, what Dr. Madana does is something very, very different to what we normally talk about in our industry. So, Dr. Madana, welcome to the show, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. It's my pleasure and blessing to be part of this story.
Thank you again. And for me, your background and what you do really fascinates me. So it's the concept of servant leadership, though it has been there for a very long time. You have found it and you have experienced it personally, and now you're sharing it with other people. So please tell us about yourself and your personal journey that helped you discover this beautiful concept.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yes, I love telling this story because it's a combination of my spiritual journey and my career choices that I made actually. So it was in IBM. I was in IBM, and that's the time when I also started. I came across the Bible and started studying the Bible, and that's when my involvement with understanding the word of God, and especially the teachings of Jesus Christ also started. So I was and I happened to attend a leadership development program in IBM. I was and I'm an engineer by qualification, by the way, and I then have worked in engineering related jobs all through. And at that time, I was actually heading one of the manufacturing plants of IBM, a pretty senior position at that time. And so I attended this leadership development program, and I got instantly attracted to the concepts that they were talking about. And so I wanted to see if there is a way by which I could join that team. So I just told the person who was who was running the program that about my interest, and nothing happened after that. After about 3 or 4 years, that person came back to me. So good that he remembered it. He came back to me and said that, look, you once upon a time, a long time back, you had expressed some interest in this, and hey, now there's an opportunity. Would you like to come? And I jumped at that opportunity. And at that time, it was seen as a foolish move by several people because I was what we call, in IBM as an upline manager, right? A manager of several managers. And to be joining this team, I had to step down from that, that elite position and be an individual contributor again. But I thought that, look, this is my opportunity to move away from being a value adder to being a value multiplier. In other words, I saw this as an opportunity to enhance the number of people whom I might be able to touch and influence, right? So I decided to take this up and went into that. And then I started obviously studying their leadership content. And that was the time when I was studying the Bible too. And I couldn't, the similarity of what they were talking and the similarity of some of the teachings in the Bible just couldn't escape me. And I got so much drawn into it. And that's how I came to, the servant leadership model that was commanded and modeled by Jesus Christ himself, right? And so I thought that, hey, look, this is a great concept, and I need to learn more about it. And typically what happens, you have a desire to learn, but you also have a full-time job, you have a family, and you have other responsibilities. And so the desire to learn remains on paper, right? So I really did a crazy thing. I decided that I'm going to put some external pressure on myself to study this topic. And that's exactly why I actually went and registered for a PhD. Actually, my PhD was not, because I wanted a degree. My PhD was a sort of means of creating an external pressure on myself so that I will study this beautiful topic. Right? And so that is how I got into this this journey of learning about servant leadership. And obviously, the more I learned, more I studied, the more I researched, I felt more and more convinced that this is something that this is required. This is something that organizations need to embrace. This is something that people need to, transform themselves and stuff like that. And then there was no stopping.
And what God has done through you is fantastic. And I am a big fan of ancient wisdom. And as you know, I write and I study ancient wisdom. That's my passion. And servant leadership is a topic that goes very closely with, closely with my interest. And that is how we met originally. And when I look back, the number of lives you have impacted through introducing that concept, this is quite amazing. And it has also changed the history of, changed the, I should say, the trajectory of many companies that you've worked with. So if you're comfortable with it, please share with our audience on some of the programs and how it has impacted people, not in a very philosophical way, but in a very tangible way. And it shows up in results and the balance sheet.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And and the key word that you threw out there is not from a philosophical point of view, right? It's easy probably for us to understand this as a noble concept, as a concept that is practiced in ancient wisdom and taught in scriptures and things like that. And so philosophically and spiritually, it is probably easy for us to embrace. And even for those people who understand it from a philosophical or from a spiritual point of view, the question of, hey, how do I really apply it in today's context, right? Today's work context where, profitability, where, results, and where instant gratification, where, high performance, and all those buzzwords, right, are there. How do I really, convert that into action? So my effort was not so much on explaining what is servant leadership to the people, but how can we be a practical servant leader in the current context, in the given situations and things like that. So that's where I converted my study into a framework that can be applied in day-to-day life in the current context. So I call it the 3-7-10 framework. And so I researched and developed a set of behaviors that leaders need to exhibit, because behaviors are what people observe us for, right? And so I went ahead and developed that set of 7 behaviors, and then I went ahead and developed a tool that can measure how you behave on those 7 behaviors. And then I developed, the linkages to 10 attributes that you need to develop so that these behaviors can be demonstrated for the people. And and that's the framework that I take people through in my workshops and in my interventions and in my coaching. So it all starts with putting the people through the assessment using that tool, and then through a workshop, helping them to understand where they stand, and more importantly, what can they do to improve in that particular, in the particular behaviors that that the 360-degree survey throws out, right? And so this, I think, if at all, I'm sure it is God's plan, this has been a successful movement. It is purely because of the focus on the practicality of the aspect and in the implementation of the aspect, rather than on the the philosophical or the spiritual aspect of the servant leadership itself. So I think that's what I've been trying to do, and that's how we have done it in several organizations.
And for me, this is fascinating, right? So we believe that thoughts become actions, and actions are reflected in our behaviors. And by influencing those thoughts and then the behavior, we change the outcome. So, like personally, I've heard you share stories of how things reset in an organization. For example, a culture of, let's say, toxicity becomes a culture of embracing diversity, or culture of acceptance, and a culture of humility. And all these things, as we talk about, often reflects on the balance sheet, which is not necessarily measured immediately, but over a period of time. These are the values that actually translate into results and then get measured in balance sheets and helping with the longevity of the company. So from a practical example, Dr. Madana, so yes, it's great to talk about all these, philosophies and then the actionable leadership aspects. Plus, what will be more interesting, what is interesting to hear that for our audience to hear is that the companies that you have actually turned around by those principles, Like, these are not principles that you read on a paper and then you walk away or do a tick box training and walk away. But these are actually very impactful. And I've seen those impacts. So the audience would love to hear it from you.
Yes, thank you, Judith. Yes, that's absolutely right. Ultimately the questions boil down to, hey, it all sounds so great. It's a noble concept, but does it really work? And does it really work in a corporate environment where we have to make profits and and then satisfy the stakeholders and more importantly the stock market, right? Which is what drives the corporate organizations today, right? Yeah, one of the reasons why such transformation efforts fail is when organizations address it just at the skills level, right? As a skill or even as a role, this thing. But what I insist on is that it got to be addressed at the culture level, and so that's really the transformation that we are going to looking at, right? And so which means, and that is why the behavior is so important, because ultimately culture is values plus behavior, right? Values demonstrated in behavior is what culture is. And so the demonstration of this in culture in behavior is what we are looking at, right? And so what we do is when people realize that, look, I think I'm great at, let's say, empathy, for example. And then they get the 360-degree survey and it shows that, hey, look, you think you are God's gift to mankind, but the team is saying, hold on, not yet there, right? And so it's a big revelation. So people realize that, okay, look, I'm not being perceived the same way. And so what is it that I need to do in my behavior? And so the behavior changes. And so one of the things that we insist on is that everybody who goes through our intervention keeps track of their changes. And we have this model called the most significant change story. So we ask them to record those stories, and those stories are shared. And so that's how it becomes a movement, right? So people share those stories about what has transformed in my life. And you'll be amazed at the transformation stories that come up. So, apart from, of course, transforming the team, some people are talking about, saving their marriages getting saved. A mother talking about, look, this has, tremendously helped me in bringing up my, 6-year-old twins, right? And so those are some of the transformation stories that we hear, because when they look at, the aspects of, putting others first, or when they look at the aspect of emotional healing, right, which is not talked about normally in leadership development. When we talk about the concept of grace, right, which is never a part of any leadership development program, or forgiveness for that matter, right? So when we practice these things, and when they see that, look, it makes a big difference, the stories catch up. And then that is how, really it becomes a people's movement in the organization. And when it becomes a people's movement, it becomes a culture, it becomes part of the culture. And so that is the first level of measurement, right? What we do is we measure the anecdotal stories. We collect these anecdotal stories about how individuals have been transformed. And then we go to the next stage. Okay, look, now that you have been individually transformed, how does this impact the organizational goals? What can we do to make sure that this transformation that you have gone through is impacting the organizational goals? So we have something called as the advanced goal setting, process, which links the behavioral change into advanced organizational goals, and then the team itself starts performing better, and then if we do a sort of what we call as a controlled group study of a group that has gone through this program vis-a-vis a group that has not gone through this program, the delta is evident. The delta is very evident, and that is a fact that people cannot just ignore. And that is what creates that pull factor into this program, right? For example, the one of the companies that I'm part of, right, and we've been in this journey since 2018. Between 2018 and 2024, we have doubled our revenue, okay? So from 1 billion, we have gone into 2 billion. So that's the level of revenue.
That itself is amazing, right? So when you look at it,
amazing, right? Yeah.
Listen more.
And now,
hey, yeah.
And of course, people can say that, okay, look, revenue growth is not dependent on, your servant leadership programs and things like that. And I don't argue with that. Yeah. But what if the fact is that while we have improved our revenue, we have doubled our revenue within the span of just 5 years, we have also become a darling of the employees, right? In the sense that the employer branding of the organization has gone up significantly, right? And this organization is there listed at the top in the Best Employer Institute, in the Great Places to Work, in Glassdoor, right? And all these places, remember, are impacted by the employees, not by the employer. Glassdoor especially, right?
Oh, yeah.
Employer, this thing. So there are employee reviews saying that, hey, look, this company has got a great work culture. And we even asked Glassdoor to give us a comparative statement between us and the big four competitors that we have. And it showed that our work culture, our employees and ex-employees are rating us much higher in our work culture and in our senior leadership and in our work-life balance and things like that, and they are linking it to, so the servant leadership movement. There's an institute called the Top Employer Institute, which audits the organization, and we have actually got a blue badge from them in Asia Pacific and in the US, because more than 5 countries have been listed as top employer in their list, and so we get a blue badge. And so they do the auditing of the culture and the processes on an annual basis, and they have very categorically called out the implementation of servant leadership as a main driver for the increase in employee engagement and a main driver for the cultural transformation. Now, programs sometimes winning, awards for being a learning and development program is not so great. But our program is winning Brandon Hall Gold Award, not for being a learning program, but for cultural transformation. Right?
Exactly.
And so this program is actually, there's sufficient external evidence. And this is all I'm talking about, this one organization that I talked about, right? Which has gone from 1 billion to 2 billion in just 5 years' time. And at the same time, become a darling of the employees, right? So they want to join us. They want to, the employer brand has significantly gone up. Attrition levels have gone significantly down, and we were almost at 40% lesser than our nearest competitor during the great attrition thing that was going on immediately after the COVID. If you remember, we were almost 40 to 50% lesser than our nearest competitor in the same field as far as attrition is concerned, right? So there are several such these things that tell us that, look, this has become people's movement. And to add to that story, for example, that this transformation now is not being driven by the L&D team, right? And this is a company of about 33,000 employees, okay, mind you. And my team is just 3 people. 3 people driving this transformation. How does it happen? Because we have enlisted the support of practicing managers and leaders who, in addition to their day job of managing P&L and all that stuff that they have to do, they're so passionate about it that they want to put it. So they come, they invest their time in being certified, and then they run the programs. Right?
And that's momentum. And this is beautiful, Dr. Madana, like be it internal endorsement, which is the increase in revenue, or the external endorsement, which is the badges and everything else that is given by external parties, in addition to creating that momentum. Like, people want to be a part of something that they believe in, and that itself attracts more business, more revenue, whatever you want to call it. So be it organizations or countries or whatever we see, historically, when there is momentum, life happens. And that is what you've created. And that is something, that is beautiful for the audience to know, learn, and, effectively use your services. So now, talking about our audience, most of us are in the ERP space, and we are all going through transformations at different stages in time. And your service, we believe, is going to be very useful to you. So in terms of your services, how can people reach out to you, and what type of services would you find it effective that you can share with the rest of the world?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Yes, so we offer basically 4 verticals. Our services are in 4 areas. The first one is human-centered coaching, right? So we basically for leadership coaching as well as at mid-level and other things. So that's the first one, human-centered coaching. The second one is what I call the human-centered leadership development. And that's where the servant leadership programs, and all of them are, of course, under the umbrella of servant leadership. So human-centered, leadership development, whether you call it compassionate leadership or empathetic leadership or people-centered leadership, all that. But ultimately, where human being is at the center of what you do, right? So that's the second area. The third area is what we call as human-centered skills, right? And human-centric skills, which is for about being the mental well-being, right? Which is absolutely essential, in today's environment, building an environment of trust, culture, and trust, right? The diversity and inclusion, right? How do we really do that beyond the the statutory requirements, right? And then then things like empowering women, or bringing in more women at leadership positions and things like that. So there are several such human-centric skills that we talk about. That's the third vertical. The fourth vertical is where we basically understand and accept that, look, any of these interventions cannot sustain by themselves, but we need to build an ecosystem, right, of processes and systems. So that's where we look at the tried and tested McKinsey's 7S model, and we offer services to do end-to-end organizational design and development activities, including performance management, rewards and recognition, career framework, succession planning, feedback mechanisms, and everything that you need to manage the people within your organization. So those are the four areas in which we serve. And all of them are, of course, all the interventions are under the umbrella of servant leadership, where we apply those philosophies, right? So those are the four areas where people can take benefit from us. The best place to reach out to me is, of course, LinkedIn. I'm pretty active in LinkedIn. Dr. Madana Kumar, PhD, is the you can search with that and reach me there. Or you could go to our website. It is very simple. leadine.com, L-E-A-D, lead.com, right? Simple website to this thing. So those are the best two ways of reaching me and coming to know about our process, our offerings and things like that. We'll be happy to, serve anybody who would want to go through this transformation exercise.
And thank you, Dr. Madana. And audience listening to this, I think you might have hit a gold mine there. So in our ERP world of transformations, we are sailing into the unknown. And your leadership team and the quality of the interactions is the one that is going to make you, or it is going to help you get there. So speak to Dr. Madana, get his insights, and let's put some magic into our business, and let's bring human nature back to earth in our business, and that'll create results. So with this, I'm Judith O'Callaghan signing off from Ancient Wisdom Forums.